Hello, this is an overview of the TIBCO Analytics vision and some of the TIBCO products that are part of this portfolio. This will take you about 30 minutes and it will walk you through a typical analytics workflow. Let's first start with a simple question. What is analytics? Basically, we have more and more data coming from more and more sources. So as the technology evolves, it becomes cheaper and faster to have access to bigger and more complex datasets. But the basic question continues to be, how do I make the most out of my data to optimize my business? I am always trying to optimize my business. So from my data, I should be able to know what happened, why did it happen, what will happen, and what should I do about it? So these questions basically describe the analytics path or journey that we will have with different stages, and each of the stage is going to involve a different product or set of products from the TIBCO portfolio. We have to start from the basics. In this case, the data preparation, management, and virtualization is key to better leverage our data assets. The TIBCO DV or data virtualization becomes the core for our analytics journey. After we have a single version of the truth, we will want to make the most out of that data. So if we need to do additional data wrangling or build executive dashboards with KPIs or do a quick ad hoc data discovery to answer questions quickly, or perhaps do more advanced work with predictive analytics or geoanalytics, then Spotfire becomes key within the analytics journey. Now, with this set of tools, your analytics skills will grow naturally, and you may want to add some more advanced techniques to your analytics, like machine learning algorithms, for example. So here, TIBCO has a set of products to accommodate to your own infrastructure. For example, on-prem versus cloud, or traditional databases versus big data infrastructures, or a combination of those. We then will finalize with a real-time data example that connects all the dots together on this analytics journey using the TIBCO Analytics portfolio. Now let's look at this analytics platform in a slightly different way. Here we can see the analytics journey step by step, starting with the business case, then the data preparation and exploration to get to the initial insights, and then a natural growth that is going to take you to more advanced analytics to finalize with the possibility of taking an action on perhaps real-time data. A good understanding of your business and your business case is essential. It doesn't matter what line of business are you in, you will always have a business case that will be tied to data. So if you want to increase productivity or reduce defects or improve customer satisfaction or reduce customer churn, it doesn't really matter what your business case is. It will always be tied to a data source. That's stage number one. So data will always be the starting point. The problem with data is not just how much there is, but also that it's scattered in silos across traditional databases, big data, and cloud sources. So, the data preparation, management, and virtualization is key to better leverage the data assets, and it's going to help you to generate that one single version of the truth that you need to be able to apply any analytics to your data. Once you have a true enterprise version of the truth, then that data can be trusted, and you can actually have a data layer that you can share across the organization. So now you can continue with your analysis. So now I can connect to that data virtualization layer that has one single version of the truth, or perhaps I can add any other data source that I want using the Spotfire Add Data Table option, with multiple additional connectors to all of those traditional data sources or big data sources at the same time. The next natural step is going to be to have an overview of my data. What is my data about? What type of columns do I have? Notice how Spotfire is grouping this into type of data. Everything numerical is grouped, categorical is grouped, and so on. Also notice that the data panel is going to allow you to do any additional data wrangling or cleansing. So for example, if I want to know what this column is about, I can use the data panel to explore the data, see the histogram, and see some basic statistics into it. I could change, for example, the categorization or the data type that I have if I need to do any change, and some other basic formatting. Also, it's important to highlight that I could, for example, split concatenated columns, use different separators or conditions to accomplish this data wrangling. The next step will be to build an initial dashboard. So let's create a typical executive dashboard that is using basic visualizations and that is using ad hoc exploration and KPIs displayed, for example. So let's assume I don't know how to start using Spotfire, and I will use the recommendation engine. As soon as I click here and I select a couple of columns from the data panel, Spotfire is going to recognize that this is, for example, latitude and longitude. Therefore, the recommendation will be a map. And if I click on the map, now I have a starting point. Every time I have a table loaded in Spotfire, I could use any of the columns from the data panel to drag and drop and provide additional insights into my data. In this case, for example, I can color by or size by or shape by any of the columns that I have on my left side. Now remember, you will always be able to ask more questions about this data. So if you want to know specifics about this sample, for example, you can right click on the mouse, details visualization, and go to a second level of information. So in this specific example, I'm talking about oil and gas and well data, and I want to know what has been the production for the last 15 years or so. I want to know how many wells have been producing for each of these years, and I want to know what are the gas and water production trends. Keep in mind that every visualization in Spotfire is going to have a properties option where you can tweak and change anything that you need to. In this case, for example, I want to ensure that the numbers that we are seeing are easy to read, and I also want to ensure that we have multiple scales and that we are keeping everything that is quantities on the left side, and in an organized way, everything that is trends on the right side. I also want to have quantities as bars and trends as lines for an easy understanding. I can rearrange visualizations, I can create any other visualization if I need to and rearrange that as well, and I can easily change colors and adjust parameters so it looks right the way I want it to look. So in a matter of minutes, we can actually accomplish something that looks like this, where you have the main KPIs that are actually changing colors based on your own thresholds, and we have a nice looking dashboard that is giving you all the insights into your data to start with. Now, keep in mind that in Spotfire we have an amazing collection of visualizations out of the box that are literally one click away. So once you have the data in good shape and your dashboard is answering the questions you needed to start with, perhaps you can push the analysis a little further, and from the out-of-the-box tools menu, you can explore many other options in terms of advanced analytics. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. In this case, models, for example, are different ways to represent in reality. That's what this boat is representing. So I can easily model my data in Spotfire using the tools menu. And some of the questions that you should ask yourself: do I have numerical information only? Do I have a mix of categorical and numerical columns? How can I use these models to represent my data? So in this case, data relationships, for example, is going to allow you to select the table that you want to apply this data relationship into, And as soon as you identify the columns that you want to explore, add them to the window and click OK. Spotfire is going to give you a set of results that comes in this form, and it's going to include statistical values like p-values, r-squares, and so on. So this is the time where you have to ask yourself questions like, is this expected? Do I have a good r-square? Should I run an ANOVA test or something different based on the type of data that I have or that I am analyzing, and so on. Also keep in mind that with one click of the mouse in the properties options, lines and connections, and lines and curves, we can actually change the model that we are applying. So in this case, we are fitting a straight line and we are getting the coefficients y equal mx plus b. But if you have a different type of model that you need to fit, we have multiple options here as well. Now keep in mind that if you are not sure on how to do something in Spotfire, you can always go to the help. That automatically is going to take you exactly to the place where you are at, and is going to clarify some of the additional options that you have when using these kind of tools. Now, the next natural step will be to predict. You can predict with one click of the mouse using the forecast option that is embedded in Spotfire. And you can predict using one single column from your data table, or you can actually create your own expression. This expression can cover multiple columns and different mathematical expressions to them. So you can aggregate and combine different columns to have an expression that is representing the data that you want to represent, and the model will adjust dynamically based on the selections that you do in your filters. So in this case, I am representing category 1, and I have a prediction for my category 1, or I can mix two categories and have two different predictions, or stay with the original predictions for category 2. Now, the model that we are applying here is out of the box and is a time series forecast model. You can always do your different approach, and depending on the level of analytics that you want to handle, you can stay with the out-of-the-box solutions, or you can grow in different paths. So naturally, you are going to grow into something more advanced, for example, machine learning. Machine learning has many branches that keep growing. You may be familiar with a couple of these techniques, like k-means, for example, or decision trees. And with the out-of-the-box Spotfire menu, you will be able to access to advanced analytics techniques that belong to this machine learning family. Example, k-means clustering, line similarity, regression modeling, classification modeling, and so on. So you can do one click of the mouse k-mean clustering, for example, and extract even more insights about your data. In this specific case, I have different wells located around, and I am able to group or cluster those wells based on geology information. So here we have some more examples and use cases that include machine learning as part of the solution. Top left, we have the k-means to generate clusters based on geology information. We have a self-organization map for geochemist analysis. We have natural language generation to articulate the value of the results, and this is going to help you to interpret your data. Or, for example, weighable analysis for equipment reliability. This can be applied across verticals. At the same time, different from energy, we have customer segmentation or product affinity for the retail. And we have, for example, financial crime busters or GBM, customer behavior, for the financial vertical as well. We have also many other examples, and we have a lot of these templates actually available for you to download for free in our community website. So if you go to TIBCO Exchange, you are going to be able to find specific topics by product in the portfolio. So for example, if you select Spotfire here, you're gonna find different templates that are available for you to download and use it directly in your example with your own data. So how do I apply machine learning? What do I need to do? What do I need to know? Basically, you have two options. So I'm gonna present the two paths. The option number one is what I call the programmer. In this option, you're gonna have access to different programming languages, and you're gonna have the option to use any of these within a data function in Spotfire. A data function is an application within the Spotfire embedded solution where you can actually select different programming codes, create your script, and link the inputs and the output parameters to that script. Now, the good news here is that you can leverage the multiple programming languages, including R, that is open source. The even better news is that TIBCO owns TER, which is our TIBCO Enterprise Runtime for R, where you don't have to worry about the security of the server or the scalability of your deployment. And you still can leverage the open source community and consume the packages that the global community creates and posts online for free every day. So, in summary, you can use the internet, go to any of these open forums, find what you need, and tweak the script here and there to accommodate it to your own variables and your own data. Let's take a look at an advanced analytics solution using this first approach. We're gonna be the programmers, and we're gonna use TER through a data function to solve an advanced analytics problem. In this case, the advanced analytics problem is related to equipments that are failing. So stage one is to understand the failure of these equipments. I have an overview of my historical data, and I can understand what happened and why it happened, and I have an overview of my state of the data based on historical information. This is very easy to create using the basic Spotfire tools. So the next natural question will be, what will happen? So you can apply different machine learning techniques to look for this answer or project this answer. So in this specific case, we're using the Weibull theory, and our goal is to apply some math to create a model using this historian data. Then you are going to naturally ask, what can I do about it? Which in this case, all the machine learning comes into place, and we can actually leverage the data function options that we have within Spotfire, and we can script the solution and create different what-if scenarios and represent this in a nice user interface where whoever needs to have access to this can interact with different what-if questions to have a final answer. So what should I do about it? In this case is I need to provide maintenance to this type of equipment within the next 16 months, for example. And this will avoid an unplanned failure. Now, if you are not a coder, you can still accomplish the same results using different techniques, like connecting boxes on a canvas, for example. So Statistical, TIBCO Statistical, allows you to bring data from multiple data sources, including Spotfire, and helps you solve complex problems with over 16,000 pre-built functions to apply machine learning to your data. So here you have access to all these menus, you can compare different models, you can easily drag and drop and connect boxes, and have access to all these results using the canvas. Bring data from Spotfire, push data back to Spotfire. Let's take a look of an example using exactly the same data that has historian information on failures for equipment. So after doing all that data preparation work and any additional data wrangling or cleansing, you now have a clean data set that is ready to be pushed to the next analytics level. So in Statistica, we can read Spotfire data tables, besides many other data sources. But if you already have all this work done in Spotfire with a clean data set ready to go, we can use it directly in Statistica. Now, we use the whole menu in Statistica with all these predefined functions where we can just drag and drop different boxes, connect the boxes, and evaluate the analysis. In this case, we are evaluating the same weighable analysis that we did with the programming path. But the important thing to highlight here is that we are not coding, we are connecting boxes, and we still have options to change different model parameters and different settings using a window that looks like this as a user interface. Of course, the two methods are giving us the same results, and we can actually push this back to Spotfire if we need to and compare our results if we need to. Okay, now, what about big data? What if your goal is to apply these same methods of predictive analytics and machine learning to data that is in a platform like Hadoop or Spark, or the so-called big data platforms? This is where the TIBCO's Spotfire Data Science platform comes in. The Spotfire Data Science platform is for organizations who want to analyze massive quantities of web, mobile, and IoT data together with the data they already have in traditional databases. It offers the same visual approach, a simple canvas, but for more larger and more complex data. It is also a web-based application that offers social and collaborative features for cross-functional teams, and it supports cloud, on-premise, and hybrid deployments. The Spotfire Data Science platform is able to leverage the power of big data platforms directly. It emphasizes scalability for machine learning and a way to reduce the complexity of big data technologies. It also supports collaboration across teams and business users or IT. So it doesn't matter if it is the data scientists or the business users or the IT groups. TIBCO, therefore, offers solutions both for data science teams that are looking for algorithmic breadth or for cross-functional teams that want to collaborate on big data in a certainly managed environment. Okay, so let's recap what we have so far. We started with a business case in mind. We discovered that everything is tied to data. We may have multiple sources of data. We want to have one single version of the truth. We did some additional wrangling and cleansing using the Spotfire tools. We had initial exploration and dashboarding, and we were able to explore advanced analytics out of the box in Spotfire. We also learned that we have two different ways to apply advanced analytics: following the programming path, which is applying programming languages like TER, or following the Statistical or Spotfire data science approach that is pretty much connecting boxes in a white canvas. Now we are ready to go to our next stage. We can apply everything that we have learned and use an example to study historian information, identify a model that we can use to train a real-time engine that perhaps is gonna send an alert when we cross a threshold for a specific signal. So let's take a look at an example that is gonna put all the dots together and is gonna give you a beginning to end analytics application example. So in this specific case, we are ready for the last stage, which is take an action. And we're gonna receive data from a specific sensors, specific type of data. We're gonna use the historian data to feed a set of rules into the real-time engine, in this case a stream-based. And whenever we cross a threshold or we identified that we are meeting the conditions that we were able to identify thanks to our historian information, we can actually notify somebody on the field before perhaps it's going to be very expensive to do any kind of repairment. So here we have a Spotfire page that is actually displaying streaming data. This data is coming from specific sensors on the field that are taking different measurements. In this case, for example, pressure and current. We can see how the values are changing as we are collecting the information, and we can also see that we have some alerts. So when do we have an alert and how we have an alert? Everything starts from the field where we have the actual sensors or Internet of Things that are collecting all of this data in real time. So we are using the OSI Pi server to stream this data, and we are receiving all of this information in our real-time engine that is called Streambase. But we are not going to be able to identify which model to apply or why if we don't do the whole analytics journey process. So we're going to start studying our historian information. So we first ensure that we are working with the correct data and that we have a single version of the truth. Then we proceed with our analytics tools, Spotfire. So in Spotfire, we're going to analyze historian information. We can have an overview of what the data is telling us, where are these sensors located, what initial trends do we have for the different signals that we are collecting, and identify a pattern. In this case, we have true positives that are describing the issue of a specific electric submersible pump to have a shutdown. So we have history. This is going to allow us to identify mathematically a set of rules. For example, change on the slope for pressure or change on the slope for current. And we're going to be able to create a set of rules that we can program in our real-time engine. In this case, in Streambase, we can evaluate that set of rules that we created using the Spotfire technique, or we can also read a TER model, for example, or we can actually read a statistical model and use all the analytics that we have been applying and using on our analytics journey. At the end, we will have an Spotfire visualization that is showing streaming data. So it's data that is being collected in real time and is actually giving us some alerts that are going to depend on the set of variables and conditions that we defined based on our historical information. And with that example, we conclude our analytics journey using the different products in the portfolio that TIBCO Analytics has to offer. Thank you.